morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Just say a little word about the curriculum today. So normally, Sembrando Salud doesn't include trees in our supplies or the curriculum, but we've had enough folks who have asked questions about it over the last few years, whether it be folks who are already growing trees or who maybe were given a tree. So we felt like this was a good opportunity to give at least some basic information about the care and maintenance of small trees in New Mexico. And, hopefully with, the growth of the program, we can also begin to offer that as part of our supplies in the coming years. And before we get started, I'll just go ahead and hand it over to our staff. We've had a little bit of a changing of hands as far as the management for Sembrando Salud. So I also want to take time to just inform the community about that and welcome new staff members. So my name is Kateri Zuni. I'm the Associate Director for the Center of Southwest Culture. For the last few years, I've managed the Sembrando Salud program. But I'm ready to hand that over to our other staff members. But first, Emma, do you want to get started with a quick introduction?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Emma Dewey, and I'm the Codice Farming and Gardening Manager. I've been a farmer on and off for about 9 years now, and I help to teach the curriculum for Sembrando Salud. So yeah, it's great to be here and to share my knowledge with you all. Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Jose Manuel Castro Lopez. I was the program coordinator for Sembrando Salud and for Codice, and I'm happy to say I'm the Sembrando Salud manager now for the program. I'm really happy. Thank you for being here today, and I'm so excited for next year and also for some of the workshops that we still have this year. Thank you for being here. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Garcia, and I'm new staff, just for my first month, and I'm program coordinator for Codice, and I'm just happy to be here with you all and support the great work that has been happening here, and getting gardens started. People growing their own food. So pleasure to be here with you guys, and look forward to a great presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So go ahead and just jump right into it. Emma, do you want to take over now?
Sure, my pleasure. So today's topics are going to be about first, New Mexico friendly varieties of fruit trees. Also choosing the right variety for you, choosing the tree size for your space, when and how to plant, thinning your trees or pruning, and pruning your trees. So for choosing your tree, we'll go over a little bit of some of the New Mexico friendly varieties that are best for the climate here, how to choose the right variety for you, and also choosing your tree size. So you can see on this little graphic here, this is from the New Mexico State University Extension Office. But they've put together this really awesome little graphic on the different varieties that they have done studies on that tend to do the best here. So you can check out the different varieties that they've got there for apples, peaches, apricots, cherries, plums, jujubes are another good one, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries. Those are not trees, but they are some fruits that do really well here, and also grapes. So New Mexico winters are cold enough and provide enough chill hours for the fruit to set, and the growing season is long enough for a variety of the different fruit trees to thrive here. So just some of the examples of ones that do especially well are peaches, nectarines, plums, apples, pears, cherries, apricots, pomegranates, figs, and almonds. So when you're selecting your tree, the first thing to do is to check the label. The label is going to contain a lot of really valuable information for you that includes the planting and care information. Things to look for are the required chill hours, light, water, and soil needs. Also, pest and disease resistance. A lot of different trees are actually, they're bred to have different pest and disease resistances. So that's a really cool thing to keep an eye out for. And also your climate requirements. And all trees that you purchase should have a label that includes all of that information. If you don't see a label on the tree, you can always ask an associate at the nursery that you're shopping at, and they should be able to provide that information for you. So once you've selected your tree, one of the things to look out for is the roots. So if you check out the bottom of your container, you should be able to see if there are any roots that are coming out from the bottom. If there are, it probably means that the tree is a little bit root bound, which means that it's been in the container for a little bit too long. So once you've pulled out the tree from the container, after you get it home, you're going to look for the girdling of the roots. And this is where the tree roots start to circle within the container. And if you do find that, make sure that you're pruning off any roots that are circling. And it's not going to hurt the tree. It's actually going to help it so that the roots can actually spread out further, because we want the roots to kind of spread out like a carpet rather than going down. Ridding the fruit trees of any girdling roots, that's also going to help to prevent the tree from basically choking itself out. You're also going to want to inspect the leaves and the branches of the tree for any visible signs of insects, like insect damage, or if you see actual insects or plant disease. And there will be ways that you can actually help to prevent those things once you have your tree. So the next thing is choosing the size of your tree. There's three different types of size standards that they have. The smallest are dwarf varieties. So you can see from the graphic here, a dwarf is about 8 to 10 feet. So those are going to make the easiest for actually harvesting your fruit. Because you won't have to use a ladder to harvest. Semi-dwarf varieties are 12 to 15 feet high. So those are going to be a little bit higher, but still should be within your reach, mostly. And then the standard varieties are 18 feet to 25 feet. A little note here that peach and nectarine trees grow more like semi-dwarf varieties, like 12 to 15 feet, even when they're called standard. And that's just because they tend to be smaller trees. So we can take a quick little pause here for if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, we can go ahead and move on. Okay. So now we're going to get into the care and maintenance section. So this is going to cover when and how to plant your tree, how to thin trees, and pruning. So the best time to plant fruit trees in New Mexico is in the fall. And this is because that's when trees are dormant and putting their energy into the roots rather than into producing leaves and fruit. So that's the best time to either transplant or plant new trees. And that's not dependent on just fruit trees. Any kind of tree that you plant is going to kind of follow that same rule. So the fall is also when the ground is still workable, and before the winter freezes the ground and makes it too hard for you to work with. So the first thing to do is to find a sunny spot that has enough overhead clearance for the expected height and width of your full-grown tree. So you want to make sure that there's not going to be any overhead power lines or anything like that that are going to obstruct the growth of your tree. Then you're going to want to dig a hole, and you want that hole to be about 1 foot deep and twice as wide as the root ball of your tree. Next, you're going to fill the hole with water, and that's going to be to make sure that you have water drainage. If you don't have water drainage, the best thing to do is to either find a different spot in your yard, or if you're like most people in New Mexico, it's an indication that you have too much clay in your soil. So you'll just want to mix together some compost or peat moss. So once you've dug your hole, just work in some compost or peat moss to a depth of about 2 feet. And that's going to give enough air in the soil and organic matter that it'll be able to drain the water better. So make sure that you're mixing that compost or the peat moss with your native soil. And that's going to help your tree to get acclimated to the native soil in New Mexico, or in your yard specifically. So the hole that you dig should be deep enough to cover the root ball. And you want to place the tree in the hole and make sure that it's standing vertically. So you can use a level if you need to. And then just make sure that you hold it in place while you're filling the hole back in with your mixture of compost and native soil. And then just press the soil down around the tree and make sure that you're just filling the hole back in with soil as you're pressing it down, so that it maintains that coverage of the root ball and gets to about the base of the tree. After you've planted it, you want to water the tree, and again, just add more soil as needed, because as you're watering, it's going to help the soil to settle more around the roots. So you'll just want to keep on adding soil and pressing it down. And then just make sure that you leave a well around the tree, like a little barrier, or just have it a little bit lower from the rest of the ground around the tree so that the water doesn't run away. And then it's really good to just top it off with some organic mulch, and that's going to prevent the soil from drying out too quickly. Another good thing to do here in New Mexico especially is to actually paint the trunk of your tree, and that's going to act as a sunscreen. A lot of trees get burnt by the sun when they're really young. So using a 1-to-1 ratio of water to white latex paint is going to be the recipe for making that sunscreen for your tree. So the next big practice for growing fruit trees is to thin the fruits on your tree. So as the fruits start to grow to about the size of an almond, the rule of thumb is to thin and leave 1 fruit every 6 inches for optimal fruit growth. So you can just use your hand as a measurement. Just pluck off the little fruits every 6 inches or so. And that's going to give them enough room to grow and get as big as they possibly can. And again, just make sure that you're reading the label on your fruit tree, or you can also use the New Mexico University Extension Office as a really great resource for taking care of specific fruit trees and learning about how to thin specifically for the variety that you have. So for pruning, this is a question that we get asked a lot about. trees typically only require light pruning. I think the rule of thumb for pruning is that you only want to prune about a quarter of what the total mass of the tree is. So you don't want to prune any more than that. That could potentially cause some problems for the tree. But you want to make pruning cuts back to a growing point, such as a branch, twig, or bud. And remember that every cut that you make is a decision-making process. So you definitely don't want to just go out there and start cutting off different branches or twigs or whatever, just because. You want to actually think through the process. And just prune with the awareness of how each cut is going to shape the tree, because that's how it's going to grow going forward. So just take those things into consideration as you're pruning. Okay, so the ideal cut is a 45-degree angle, and you can see this little graphic. That's what a 45-degree angle looks like. So you don't want to do anything that's going to be too angular or too flat. You want to make sure that each cut is that 45-degree angle. And so, yeah, you can see in the image, the angle is created from the lowest point of the cut, the top of the cut, and the nearest point of new growth. So you also want to make sure that you're only pruning for the important reasons. And the rule for that is using the 4 Ds, which is dead branches, diseased branches, dying branches, and for damage. There's also the additional reason for conflict. And that's when branches are crossing each other. So if you notice that there are branches that are kind of getting in the way of other ones, or they're crossing, you want to make sure that you're pruning those branches as well. And that's going to help to ensure healthy growth and also make sure that any of the fruit on the tree is getting equal light around all sides. The other thing that you want to make sure that you do is to sterilize any of the tools that you're using for pruning. You can use bleach, you can use alcohol or a household disinfectant like Lysol wipes. And that's going to help to prevent the spreading of any plant viruses and diseases. Even if you don't think that your tree has any kind of diseases, it's just always a good practice just to make sure that if there's something that you're not seeing, that you're not spreading any of that disease. Okay, so again, if anybody has any questions about anything we've covered, or if there's anything that we didn't cover that you're curious about, please let us know. You can unmute, or you can also post your questions in the chat. Okay, I see a question here from Susan. Do fruit trees need a partner tree to pollinate? That's a really great question. And that's going to depend on the type of tree that you have. You want to look for trees that say that they're open pollination. That's going to mean that they don't need another tree to help pollinate. If it doesn't have that, then they will more than likely need a partner tree. So just make sure that you're checking the label of the tree that you're planting, because it won't be true for every tree. Awesome. Any other questions? If not, today, if you think of any other questions, please feel free to post your questions in our Facebook group. We'll also have an upcoming workshop, the date to be determined. So we'll post the information for that as soon as we have it. And just make sure that you're keeping up with us on our Facebook group, and you can also follow us on Instagram at Sembrando Salud. You can also contact us by email at info@centerofsouthwestculture.org. You can also reach us by phone at 505-247-2729. And you can also check out our website at centerofsouthwestculture.org to check out all the other cool programs that we have available. And thank you all for being here today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.